Some songs make you bob your head or want to dance. They might make you feel happy, sad, hopeful. But there's also some songs that are just so beautiful that you can't just play them out of the blue. Like, I'm not putting on Debussy's Clair de Lune while I'm cleaning the house, unless I want to be sobbing while I'm vacuuming. Dangelo's song Really Love is another one of those for me. If this song comes on, I either gotta clear my schedule for the afternoon or just turn it off. Listening to something this beautiful while doing anything just feels disrespectful. So today, I'm doing it right. We're gonna break down Really Love, the groove, the instrumentation, the meaning, the gut-wrenching emotion, and discover that the reason this song is so beautiful is one simple reason. It's all real. So turn off the vacuum, put your phone on Do Not Disturb, put some headphones on, because we're diving all the way in. First off, this groove is unreal. Incredible. We're gonna break all of these elements down in a second. Now, this is the band groove before D'Angelo starts singing. This would be the Vanguard, since this album is credited to D'Angelo and the Vanguard. Now, there's a lot of instrumentation in here, so let's start with the drums. I'm not 100% positive who this is playing drums. This was the first song written for the album Black Messiah, and it was written in 2001, which, if you know your D'Angelo history, Voodoo was released in 2000, followed by his next album, Black Messiah, in 2014. But basically, D'Angelo released Voodoo, went on tour, then came back and wrote this song. Of course, in the 13 years between the initial writing of this song and its release, it would be changed multiple times, and we're going to cover all of that. But the initial demo was a drum machine, which was replaced by Questlove, but James Gadson also tracked drums for this song. The album liner notes don't list who played exactly on what song, just that Quest, James Gadson, and Chris Dave were the drummers for the album. That's an insane lineup of drummers. Anyway, this is a relatively straightforward beat on paper, but the way it's being played is incredible. There's so much feeling to it. Just listen to it. The whole thing kicks up a notch, though, when you bring the bass in. Watch this. This is Pino Palladino playing bass on this, and he's laying it so far behind the beat, it's crazy. Like, let me show you the waveform on this. Here's just the drums. Got it? But look at that waveform. Now watch what happens when I bring the bass in. Do you see how far behind the beat these bass notes are? They're not locked in with the drums at all. No bass, bass. No bass, bass. No bass, bass. Come on. In most other musical settings, you want the bass and drums to be locked, but here Pino is laying it so far back, but it's not dragging, it feels amazing. In my video on Earth, Wind & Fire's September, I gave this analogy. A good groove is like a three-legged race. We tie a rope around my ankle, the other end to yours, and then we have to race to the finish line without tripping. And to do this, you have to bring your own sense of time to the table and be so in sync that it feels like there's no rope at all. Well, in this case, it's like the rope is a bungee cord or something. Pino is laying so far back in the groove, but he'll bounce back on the beat occasionally, and in this song, the push and pull is the point. The drums and bass aren't perfectly metronomically accurate individually, and they're constantly pushing and pulling against each other as well. This push and pull gives the groove a human feel. It feels real. So good. In 2007, Questlove leaked this song, which had different drums on it, and no extended intro like the final version. But the drums on this final version definitely feel looser, more elastic with the bass. Now, we're going to talk more about that bass line in a second, but let's talk about the other instrumentation anyway. This is just past the intro, after the guitar thing, coming back to those. Strings fading in. The drums and bass. Man, I wish I could just make the whole video listening to this. I don't want to stop it, but I got to. There's harp in there too. This is actually a sample of the Curtis Mayfield song "We the People Who Are Darker Than Blue." Now I think this is strange because There's so many other real live instruments, and D'Angelo started writing the song in 2001. Questlove leaked it in 2007. It was finally released in 2014. It's not like he couldn't find a harpist to do some glissandos in a 13-year period. Plus, the sample is cleared, so I'm sure it would be cheaper to just hire a harpist. This sample feels intentional, like he's sampling this specific Curtis Mayfield song on purpose. What that purpose is, I don't know, but this sample acts as a bridge between the extended intro and when the main groove kicks in. Also, we're coming back to that intro in just a minute. It was added after the leak in 2007. It's so beautiful. It basically changes the meaning of the rest of the song, but we'll get there. We haven't talked about the nylon string guitar yet. The melody is first introduced with the guitar, and the sound of the nylon string evokes a specific vibe. It's Latin-esque, Spanish flamenco maybe. This Spanish guitar paired with the gorgeous strings, super laid-back groove from the drums and bass, it's a combination of genres that's hard to call just one name. I mean, we could call that groove neo-soul, a term that D'Angelo doesn't like, by the way, but that doesn't capture the whole story of what's happening musically. And this is all before we get to the vocals. This is classic D'Angelo. Layers and layers of vocal from D'Angelo himself, and also Kendra Foster, who's one of the co-writers of this song. They're also attached to the groove with, bungee cords, free to bounce around a little. And in signature D'Angelo style, it's hard to understand. But it's not about understanding every word, it's about the feeling behind it. After all, words are an imperfect form of expression. That's why this song exists in the first place. If D'Angelo could say what he's trying to say with just words, he would. Instead, he's built up this incredible soundscape around him to get his emotions out. This combination of genres, the fact that it's hard to pin down as one thing, the looseness of it all, this also makes it feel more real. Like this love song feels like a true expression from the heart. It doesn't fit cleanly into one box. That Spanish guitar, by the way, this wasn't the first time D'Angelo had played with a Latin-inspired sound. I mean, remember Spanish joint off of Voodoo? That groove is so good. Man. This was one of the last songs recorded for Voodoo, and engineer Russell Elevado says the arrangements came together in about an hour. That's a pretty stark contrast to Really Love, which was the first song written for Black Messiah, and took years and multiple changes until it was finished. By the way, speaking of things being real, the Spanish joint, that term doesn't just refer to a song, it refers to a woman. One real-life woman in particular, Gina Figueroa. She's a Puerto Rican-American artist who's an incredible singer in her own right. She and D'Angelo were in a relationship during the recording of Voodoo. She was there at Electric Lady for the sessions. They had a passionate romance that grew and then abruptly ended, with Gina describing it as turbulent. Then, right as he's finishing Voodoo, D'Angelo records his Latin-influenced song about the exhilaration of falling in and out of love. D's former manager, Dominic Trenier, flat out said that Gina Figueroa is the Spanish joint. Sorry, how did I get here? I thought I was talking about Really Love. Sorry, that was just an extra tangent that is not at all related to the story, and we're not going to circle back on later at all. I'm kidding, we're absolutely doing that. That part was really important to the overall story. Let's talk about expectations and specifically subverting them. The chord changes to Really Love are very similar to the jazz standard Autumn Leaves. They're both full of 2-5-1s, resolving to the 1 major chord or the relative minor, the 6 chord. But there are several elements here that subvert our expectations. For one, the verse is a 10-bar phrase. That's unless D feels like adding a tag for a couple more bars, or maybe another one. The form of this song is totally unpredictable. It feels familiar, but goes unexpected places. It's like you think you know where it's going, but after the 3rd or 4th time of the song unexpectedly repeating a phrase, I'm forced to turn off my analytical brain and just listen to what's happening. Then there's the bass line. This is essentially a walking bass line, but it goes unexpected places. I'm a bass player, so this especially sticks out for me as subverting the expectation. My analogy for walking bass lines is this. Imagine you're building a picket fence. You're not just gonna put the individual planks in the ground. No, Every 8 or 10 feet or so, you're gonna put a big post in the ground. Those are your main structural support. Then you're gonna put some cross beams to connect these fence posts, then fill in the individual slats from there. Now you've got a solid fence that's sturdy and looks good. Well, for a walking baseline, the fence posts are the roots of the chords, and the support beams and slats are the notes in between. When there's a chord change, you should play the root note, then use different notes to get to the next fence post, the next root note. I'm simplifying and systematizing something that can be incredibly expressive and musical on its own. But the point is this: Pino's bassline is like a walking bassline that has fence posts spaced out further than you'd expect. He's not hitting the root notes as often as a normal walking bassline. For instance, here's what the groove would sound like with a more cut and dry walking bassline. But instead, here's what Pino actually plays. Hear how he's moving around a little more? It's gorgeous. Combine his lack of roots with the way he's playing the notes, so far behind the beat, and this fence is a little wobbly. Not so much that it's going to fall over, but just enough that it doesn't quite do what we expect it to do. It's not in a box. It wanders. It doesn't follow the rules. It's, real. Okay, we've talked about the groove, the chords, the bass line. Now let's talk about that intro. That low, bowed, upright bass. Like, I'm a sucker for strings. You know this, but man, that's some of the most beautiful strings I've ever heard. It's ominous, it's dark, slowly ascending up. These strings were arranged by Brent Fisher, an incredible arranger who's worked with Eric Benet, Tony Braxton, and whose father did the arrangements for Prince's Parade album. These strings feel so incredible because they're real strings, but also because this album was recorded to tape, entirely analog. No plugins of any kind were used in any of the recording, processing, or mixing. In other words, this sounds so good because it's all real. Like, I know I keep saying that, but I've got one more thing coming up, and it's a big one, so buckle up. Let's keep going. So the intro gives way to this Spanish guitar. Oh man. There's also a woman speaking Spanish throughout this intro. The guitar mixed with this woman talking makes us feel like it's a movie soundtrack, either from like an old romantic movie or like Ocean's 12. Definitely check that soundtrack out if you don't know it. What is the woman saying in the intro, though? I don't know. I mean, if we can barely understand D'Angelo, it's probably not that important that we understand her, so I guess let's move on. I'm messing with you. This is all set up. Who do you take me for, a fool? Anyway, this song is so beautiful, and it's being played by world-class musicians. I mean, let's just check the credits here. Piano, organ, keyboard, synths, D'Angelo. Guitars, D'Angelo, Isaiah Sharkey, Jesse Johnson, Spanky Alfred, Mark Hammond. Bass, we got Pino. Drums, we got Questlove, we got James Gatson, Chris Dave. Horns, we got Roy Hargrove. Spoken vocals, we got Gina. String arrangements, Brent Fisher. Sorry, wait a minute. Gina? Gina? Spanish joint Gina? Yes, it turns out D'Angelo first played a demo of Really Love for his former love, Gina Figueroa, around 2006, and again at a listening session in 2011 when he straight up told her, "This is your song." He then told her about the extended intro he wanted to add to the song, the one we just looked at, the Brent Fisher intro, and Gina recorded her spoken part in Spanish. As she recalled, "I sat face to face with him and recited my spoken word to him. I told him about our love story. This was like my poem and my story to him." Oh man, that's so sweet. So D'Angelo wrote Spanish Joint after they broke up near the end of Voodoo. Then shortly after, he started writing Really Love about Gina, and she recorded the intro on it, laying out their love story. How sweet. But wait, if we translate what she's actually saying, it's stuff like, I love you very much, all the time we spent. What I want to tell you is that you're screwing up my life. You are very jealous. You wanted to be my owner, but I'm free. I don't know if I trust you, but I love you so much. They've had a tumultuous relationship, and now she's on the fence. She doesn't know if she trusts him. This intro changes the song completely. It's not just a love song. This is D'Angelo begging for her, saying he's really in love with her, or in really love with her. What unfolds is then a beautiful piece of music with a lot of unconventional twists on established sounds and ideas. This song feels real because it is indeed real. Every aspect of it, not just the groove, the chords, the bass, the strings, the way it was recorded, but the emotion behind it. That's why this song is one of the most beautiful songs ever recorded. And I can't just put it on while I'm cleaning my house. Gina Figueroa recalled hearing the final version when the album came out, learning that her part made the record. She said, "It was utterly bittersweet. It was painful as hell, very painful, but very emotional, very beautiful, and I loved it." Though she was only initially listed as spoken vocal and only by her first name, Gina Figueroa eventually did receive co-writing credit, which meant that when this song won a Grammy for Best R&B Song, so did Gina. D'Angelo is an incredible musician with a unique ability to blend genres. I mean, you can hear that on this song, on the rest of this album, as well as previous albums like on Chicken Grease, where, hear me out, I found influences all the way from Marvin Gaye to Beethoven. But for that story, you gotta click here.